The first Monday he's not on and everything goes crazy. He's never allowed to leave again. Stephen Yates, who is a senior fellow at America First Policy Institute, and he's also chair of the China Policy Initiative. He worked in foreign policy in the Bush White House, and he also has advised 45 as well. And he's on the phone with us now. My friend, thank you so much for joining us, and I appreciate it, your busy schedule. I just wanted to get your reaction to that video. I mean, you have the Chinese communist leader dressing down Canada's prime minister. It's on tape. He has no qualms about it, doing it right in front of somebody with a camera. I mean, obviously, I think that's great propaganda for them. But man, Trudeau looked weak there.
Well, I think it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. So if we're going to get kind of Xi Jinping 2.0 coming out of the COVID lockdowns himself and entering out into the world, he's showing his fangs. He's the bully on the block, and he's letting people know it. But as I say, I mean, Trudeau has really, really bent the knee and kissed the ring for Emperor Xi multiple times, thought he could get away with having a private chat and then spinning the public yarn, and Xi called him out on it. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, it would be a lot better if maybe world leaders stopped bending to China and said, you know what, if you want to meet with me, we're going to have a joint press avail where I'm going to answer some questions from my press, and so are you. And if you don't want to do that, then maybe we don't need to meet. But for leaders for decades have bent to China's whims on this. And it's about time one of the showboating liberals got bitten and took us for it.
Yeah, it's just we're talking with our friend Stephen Yates. It just seems weird that, here you have Xi Jinping walking around as though he's just a regular guy there, not the guy of a communist regime that took over Hong Kong, is threatening Taiwan, unleashed a pandemic on the world, all kinds of stuff. I wonder if he treated anyone else that way. I can't imagine that his conversation with Joe Biden went off any better.
Well, Joe Biden has a harder time coming out of a meeting and recounting all the things that happened in it than Trudeau does. Yeah. So Trudeau was able to give a bit more of a readout, perhaps, of what was discussed. But it sounded like what the Chinese were objecting to was that he was trying to spin that he was tougher on Xi in the private conversation than he was. And Xi just eyeball to eyeball put it right in his chest. Wow. So on the one hand, while I think Xi Jinping is a demonic, evil character in the modern day drama, I wouldn't give him credit for anything. We probably should have more of this kind of going back at Xi Jinping too. Yeah,
good point. The other issue I wanted to bring up is on the other side of the planet, the issue with Poland and Ukraine. Now it's coming out that, well, it looks like it was, maybe Ukraine shooting down a Russian missile. But that's not what Volodymyr Zelensky said in video. He gave one of his video addresses the day before, yesterday, because he said, well, this was a Russian attack, et cetera. And he mentioned NATO. There should be a strong response. And then now NATO and even Poland's foreign minister, the United States, we played audio of Biden acknowledging this. They're saying that it looks like it was accidental. That's a very different conclusion than what Zelensky was insinuating in his video. Does he? I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Because it seems like that seemed to be a really wrong reaction that he had. And if everyone had acted on that, my gosh, what would have happened?
Well, you would like to believe that people who are in charge of national security with lives on the line and their nation's fate on the line would be more careful than some of us in the television and radio commentary business. But even we, for years and years, have talked about you have to be full with first reports. And when this first happened, and it was kind of an isolated thing, I had a number of friends calling saying, hey, what happened? And is this going to trigger Article 5 and other kinds of things happening? And I said, well, there are processes for all of that. But a wise person told me early on in my time in government, just be very, very careful. Human error, incompetence, and a whole bunch of other factors a lot of the time are what causes inexplicable accidents. And so let's make sure we know what really happened before jumping on this.
Yeah.
And sounds like that's the way it went. But for Zelensky to jump in on it like that, I think it was very risky for him. There are credibility consequences if you get caught crying wolf and you are wrong.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So it looks like that's pretty much at this point all kind of wrapped up. It was weird, and this is the last question for you, because we were listening to a DOD presser earlier today, and the defense secretary was out saying it was weird because he said it was kind of an error, but also that Russia ultimately bears responsibility, which seemed kind of like a mixed message. Where does this go from here? Is it just we acknowledge that it was, kind of an errant thing? It was not an attack on a NATO member, so back to how it's been for the past, year?
Yeah, well, I think that what the administration and others are trying to stretch for is it's Russia's fault that there is a war. And
Right.
I don't actually dispute that.
Right.
Putin did invade. He shouldn't be doing that. Okay, I think we can compare notes and agree on that. But when it comes to how this isolated incident was handled, there are some problems. I mean, there's problems of communication, verification, trust, and also, as we've talked about, a lot of people don't want to face up to. At some point, we have to say, what is it that we aim to accomplish in this? What is exactly our objective? Are we fighting to a standstill? Is America leading the way on money and risk? Are Europeans going to step in and do more? So what is the off-ramp for this? Or is it another gradual forever war? And that, I think, is an awkward spot we're caught in right now. The current administration, I don't think, has answers or wants to give them on that. But I hear that there's a contest for leadership ongoing in the U.S. and the Congress and otherwise. Maybe those bright minds can start cluing us in and engage this conversation.
All right. I agree with that. Stephen Yates, you can follow him at YatesComs on Twitter. Always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time today. We're grateful. Take care.
Thanks so much, Dana. Take care.
Of course.